Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bass Channel. Today we're going to explore the age-old question, do electric instruments sound better with age? As we all know, no instrument is more revered than the 1959 Les Paul, the 1958 Precision Bass, the 1960 Jazz Bass, and you can see where this is heading. But what makes these instruments so coveted and so expensive? Were instruments really just made better back then, or has the effect of time been on their side? To conduct this experiment as fairly as possible, we're using a brand new Warwick rock bass Adam Clayton Signature. The good people at Warwick were kind enough to send us this bass, and we'd like to give a huge thank you to them. I chose this particular model for a couple reasons. First off, it's a rock bass edition, meaning that the price and materials used, while quality, aren't so exceptionally high and master-crafted by such exotic woods that the test wouldn't be practical or realistic. Also, it's got an alder body, maple neck and fretboard, and a single Seymour Duncan SPB3 pickup. Essentially classic tone woods and an electronic setup that we've all become very acquainted with over the last 60 or so years. Over the next year, we're going to put this bass through some rigorous, hyper-realistic testing as well as countless hours of recording, rehearsing, and performing to see if it really does sound different at the end. The same pickup, same body, same neck, same bridge, and even the exact same set of strings will be recorded twice into the wiretap and reamped under identical settings. Once now, and once again in 365 days. So let's get started and take a look at the bass. All right, it's day 2 into the experiment, and our box has arrived from Framus Warwick. So let's pop it open and see what's inside, even though we all know what's inside. This is packaged really well. All right, so it came in a Warwick rock bag. Oh, and there it is. Adam Clayton Signature rock bass. Seymour Duncan SPB 3/4 pounds. Very familiar with those. We love those. Little thumb rest here. 3-piece maple neck, bolt-on construction. This is a design very similar to what we've seen before. So we have a master volume, and then this is a passive bass and treble. Passive meaning it's cut only. So that's really cool. Instead of a single tone knob, it's a passive 2-band. Warwick strap locks, 2-piece 3D bridge, ergonomic tuners, made in China. It's got a nice weight. It's pretty light. It feels like it's, I'm gonna guess 6 pounds, maybe 7. Not bad. The block inlays on this are extremely nice. Kind of got that celluloid, I think that's what it's called. Let's see, what else? We got the easy access truss, we got the Justin Nut 3, and nice volute on the back. I'm a huge fan of the volute. And quick access cover. And tomorrow I'm going to get Nick and Josh to play this, get their first impressions on the feel, the tone, and then we will embark on our endeavor. I'd also like to take a second to recognize that Adam Clayton's name on the headstock here is printed in Comic Sans. So definitely love to see some Comic Sans getting its fair use in the game, and we'll be back soon. All right, so it is day 3. Today is the day that we're going to check the tones of the bass, brand new, hasn't really been played yet, but before we do that, I'm gonna slap a new set of Elixir stainless steel 45 to 105. A couple reasons. One, I really love the way these sound. These are on our green bass back there. They've been on this bass for a little over 2 years, but they sound great, but most importantly, they're coated. So any kind of oil or dirt or debris that could be on the guy's fingers while they're playing it today won't be a factor since these are indeed coated. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna slap these on the bass, do our tones for today, and put these in a Ziploc bag and put them on in exactly a year from today. And because they're coated, they're gonna sound pretty much identical to the way they sound today. Okay, so I'm here with Nick. This is Nick's first time holding the bass, seeing the bass, and playing the bass. So what I want to do first is just have you play the first thing that comes to mind. We're rolling through the dark glass, but I'm also going to wiretap this with the TC Electronic wiretap so we can play it back and hear exactly what he played. So we are rolling whenever you're ready.
Cool.
give me your first impressions on the tone, on the feel, and just how you feel about the bass.
I like the neck a lot. That's always going to be one of the first things that whenever I grab an instrument, because this is where my hand is all the time. It's a good neck. You and I have been back and forth a bunch of times on whether we like satin necks or completely flat finish necks or high gloss. Whatever.
I love satin necks.
Yeah, I like a good satin neck as well. This is very comfy. It's not completely doesn't feel like there's no finish whatsoever. It's not sticky at all. It feels nice and smooth. It's very comfy. I like that the serial number is like stamped onto the back of the headstock, as opposed to just like written on or painted on or whatever. It's actually stamped on, which is very cool. You usually only see that kind of stuff with like higher end, some American made stuff. So the P style pickup is it's a classic P style feel. It's very, very big and punchy sound. So it's cool, man. It feels really good. I like this neck a lot. It feels really nice.
So you've owned a handful of instruments. How many of those instruments have you purchased brand new?
1, 2, it's a couple.
Because we know your number one precision bass for sure.
I got that new. Yeah, I got that brand new.
And there's a handful of others?
Yeah, like the fretless jazz I got was brand new. But definitely like the most notable is my number one is my P style.
So that one you've had for a few years, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's been 5 to 7 years.
And what has your experience with that instrument been from day one to present day?
It's noticeably different. Even in the few years that I've played it. That can be attributed to a lot of things, but I know now that when I grab my bass, it feels the way I need it to feel,
Okay, so from like physical wear standpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
exactly. I don't know, maybe I've just gotten more comfortable with it. Maybe I've grown to fit the instrument more, but like I've played a lot of P basses. I've played some P basses from the exact same year. And that one just whenever I played it feels different to me. It feels correct.
Okay. And then as far as tone goes, have you noticed any kind of difference in tone on that? Because that your number one bass is all stock.
Completely stock. I just put a drop tuner, but pickups are the same.
And have you noticed any kind of change in tone?
That one I'm not so sure about. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. My playstyle changes a lot depending upon where I'm at, headspace, or what the room calls for. I don't know. That I'm not so sure about, actually.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, and that makes sense because you've had it for a number of years, so naturally you're not buying the instrument thinking, okay, this is going to sound different. So that's, I think, a good reason why we're doing this experiment, wiretapping everything. So essentially what we're going to do is in exactly 1 year, I'm going to have you play the first thing that comes to mind and see how you've adapted as a player, but also play a handful of riffs that you can easily duplicate in a year. Be very conscious of where your hand's at when you're playing because, wherever you move it, you can change the tone. So we're going to try to tackle every aspect of how instruments sound different over time, whether it's the player or the instrument itself, or a mixture of both, which is my hypothesis. It's probably a mixture of both. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're here to do. Anything else you want to say about the bass?
First impression is overall thumbs up for me. Feels good, plays good.
Cool. All right, so let's do a couple riffs. I'm going to get out of the frame and let Nick play some riffs that we can easily duplicate in a year. So we'll be right back. Okay, so I got Will here. Again, this is Will's first time seeing, holding, and playing the bass. So what I want to do to start is just have you play the first thing that comes to mind. I'm going to wiretap it, and we will hear that a year later when he plays the first thing that comes to mind in 365 days. So we are rolling whenever you're ready, sir.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So give me your first impressions on tone, feel, everything that comes to mind.
It definitely feels like a Warwick right off the bat. Like you can tell. I mean, the difference for me is the neck finish feels different than like the normal Warwicky feel, because I feel like it's sanded perfectly, whereas the Warwicks have a little bit of like the grain
Yes.
indentation
Yes.
usually, you know. So that's the first thing right off the bat that feels different. So it feels more like a Fender in that sense. The body shape is obviously, it feels the same as a Warwick. That's the comfortable part. And I can tell always when I'm playing a Warwick, I know because the space from pickup to edge is like way smaller than on a Fender, so my forearm rests differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's all just normal Warwick stuff. Tone-wise, it sounds great. It sounds like a P bass, but it has that like ringy feel to it. You know how Warwicks do. All the typical stuff people say is totally true. That's why they say it. And yeah, I'm gonna have to play it a little more to give you more on it, but it feels great. I love the little thumb rest.
Yeah, the little thumb rest
that's
is cool.
Great. It's little. It's the perfect size. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That big old thing.
So my next question is, you've owned a handful of basses. How many of them have been brand new off the shelf? Roughly.
Maybe like 2 or 3.
Okay.
If you count brand new off the shelf, like the floor model at an instrumental or guitar center, then yeah, 2 or 3.
Not an obvious second.
I think I may have ordered 2 from online, which isn't. I guess that counts also as like a brand new.
Because your number one bass is a precision bass.
Yeah.
And that was basically brand new floor model. How have you noticed that from brand new to present day it feels or sounds different?
When I first started playing it, I didn't like think about that too much. I wasn't thinking like, let's see how this
Naturally,
feels now,
most
you know.
people don't.
But it definitely has become like my baby. Like I'll play all my other basses and it's fun, but like when I have that one, I play the best and it feels the best, and that's just like what I'm most comfortable with. So I don't know if that's because it's my number one, or if it's because it has kind of worn in over the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's me getting used to the bass or vice versa.
And that's
you know?
what we're trying to tackle here.
So this will be cool. But
yeah.
definitely, there's a definite difference. It's just a matter of what is it and why is it. You know what I
Okay.
mean? But I can feel a difference in that bass for sure.
So you would say, I mean, obviously this is brand new off
yeah.
the shelf
It's
from
incredible.
Nashville. So
And it feels great. It feels great. It
Yeah.
has a personality already, which is a problem with some new basses, is that it's just like stale and dry and cold. This thing is. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It feels great and it sounds great. So I'm really excited to see how this thing ages.
yeah. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to tackle if you change, if the bass changes, or a little bit of both. Which my hypothesis is it's probably going to be a little bit of both.
Probably.
So you've played the first thing that comes to mind, and we're going to obviously do that again in a year. But what I'd like to do now is have you play 2 or 3 riffs that you can easily duplicate in a year.
Okay.
And again, we're going to wiretap it, and we'll compare them back to back in a year's time. So I'm going to pop out of frame and let Will do his thing. Okay, so I got Josh here now. This is Josh's first time checking out the bass. What we're going to do is we're going to, again, like we did with Nick and Will, we're going to wiretap and just get his first impressions. But to start, let's just have you play the first thing that comes to mind.
All right.
All right, cool. All right, so obviously this is the first time you've seen it, felt it, played it. What are your first impressions of the bass?
Well, it's got that like P bass feel, and it got that lot of honky mid-tone. At least I
Yeah.
feel it. Immediately, and everything's already up. So it's a lot different from the other thing we have, which is the Corvette.
Yeah,
It's a
Corvette
lot
with the dual
deeper.
jazz.
Yeah, so this thing's got a lot more mid-tone. And of course, again, I think we're clean tone right now.
Yes, we're clean. Everything is all flat.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's good how it is right now, but not my tone, but great to show off what this can do exactly.
Yeah. What about feel? How does it feel?
Perfect.
Cool. All
Like
right.
it's fine as far as playability. Yeah, I mean it's pretty fast neck. I really like the smoky squares.
Yeah,
really
I think
gives
it's
it a flair.
I think it's celluloid.
Celluloid.
I think I could be wrong. I don't know
Well,
exactly what they call it, but it
and the
looks great.
The thumb rest is to me perfect on where I would normally play if the pickups were the other direction.
Oh, gotcha. Like they would be on a typical Fender.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because that's why I'm like, oh, this is great. Because I wouldn't play back here. I probably could, but and then again, it gives you a little more opposed to, of course, the pickup height. So that makes total sense.
Yeah.
But it's got more girth. I got fat fingers, so it makes sense.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you is you've owned a handful of basses over the years.
Yes.
How many of which did you purchase brand new off the shelf?
All of them.
Okay, perfect. So have you noticed on any of those, or all of them, that they sound and or feel different from day one to present day?
I want to say maybe, but again, from playing when I was a lot younger to now, my ear has gotten a lot different.
Okay.
I loved clean tone. I hated distorted signals. Hated. So until, of course, I heard a Dark Glass, it totally changed me. That was different. So I actually started using like 2 years ago distorted signal.
Yeah.
So that's I don't know about that one. That's a little tough, but maybe.
What about feel? Do they feel different as time goes on to you?
Yes.
Okay.
But then again, I get accustomed to certain playing styles. So then, of course, I've been playing with the truss rod and the bridges all the time. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because that's one of the big things is we want to try to distinguish, does the instrument change or does the player adapt to the instrument?
Very true.
Is it all placebo? Who
Yes.
knows? So we're
Yeah.
trying to be as scientific as possible. So up next, I'm just going to have Josh record a couple riffs that he can easily duplicate in a year's time, as we've done already. And we'll be back in a sec.
All right.
So day one of shooting is all wrapped up. We got the first impression tones. We got some different tones that all the guys can reproduce as close to exactly a year later. I've taken the elixirs off of the bass and have put on a D'Addario NYXL 55 to 110 because that's Josh's preferred gauge. And what I'm going to have them do during the course of this year is every show or rehearsal or recording that they may have them play that bass exclusively. So we can try to get as much play time in, as much vibrations into that body as possible. So as luck would have it, Nick actually has a gig tonight in downtown Ventura that I'm actually kind of late for, but hopefully I'll get him the bass in time for the break and he can do set 2 and 3 with it. So that's where I'm heading right now. I'll get some video footage of him during the show to follow, and we'll have some more rigorous, hyper-realistic tests coming up here pretty soon. So stay tuned.
sense of time. Falling hard takes some time.
All right, so it's January 17th, 2020. We've had the Adam Clayton rock bass for approximately 8 months, and I'm here at the Warwick booth at NAMM 2020 to ask master luthier Marcus Spangler from Warwick a little bit more about how wood ages, how vibrations affect it, and most importantly, what we can do to make our 1-year-old bass sound like it's over 50. So let's check it out.
Age. The process of aging is, you have to see it in a different way. The aging process comes with the playing process. Means the more you play it, the more it ages. The more it vibrates. That's the reason why old instruments, also violins, they are sounding good because you play it. If, for example, you take a Stradivari, you put it into somewhere in a box and leave it there forever, it will not sound good. So it sounds only good because you play an instrument. The instrument is in vibration. So because you play the notes, you get used to it. It's a personal thing, you know. I think it depends what you are playing. The vibrations you get in, the better the instrument is toning for you. Yeah, and when you are more doing like this, shredding or whatever, then of course this will be the more shredding instrument, let's say it in this way. And this is, I think, the more you play the instrument, the better is sounding, it's toning, it's better vibrating, it's more breathing. And this is, I think, the important thing on aging an instrument. And the truth is, the more the wood is vibrating, the more tone, the more, because what is happening, you play the strings, it's vibrating, and the wood starts to vibrate as well. And this vibrating gives a better tone. So there were some people on the market, they were making these small microphones and on it. And I think it makes sense, but end of the day, the better it would be that you play it by yourself. So in this book, they were really making tests with violins, acoustic guitars, and so on. And they were putting it on a vibrator engine. They put it on the top, were making in certain frequencies like the wood would vibrate under strings. So, and they found out that instruments which were, when you played them before, and they were talking especially about dead spots. And instrument had dead spots, and the dead spots which were before in, after vibrating it in after a certain amount, they were gone. But also you had instruments that were before perfect, you vibrated them, and they were coming in. So I think it's really, you have to play the instrument. You have to play the instrument by yourself, or you really try it out with vibrating the wood or vibrating all the parts. And this is a thing what could change the tone and could change the thing. And another thing what we were on, or where we are at the moment on, it's deep freezing things. And this is at the moment a thing where you, because of cooling the wood down or everything, I don't think here on the wood, I think here more on the metal parts. Because, for example, this is a new thing what we try at the moment. This is a new thing what is happening. You tool making, for example, or you can sharpen tools, or in engines when they get deep frozen, the structure of the metal is changing inside, and this is changing the stiffness of the wood, the hardness of the wood. So when you have a knife, for example, and it's deep frozen, it stays longer sharp. So we are not, but in theory there is something happening in the material. So when you take, for example, bridges, the pickups and so on, this can change maybe the things inside.
Now, on electric instruments, how much does the wood have an effect on the tone?
It has a lot. So important is the neck area, or the space between from nut to bridge, and of course the nut and also the bridge. But in this area, the most of the vibrations are going or are working, you know, and this is the major part of the instrument, and this is what you change here. This is the thing what changed the tone, what affects the tone. I don't want to say that it's an instrument with 6 bolts is toning better. It depends what you want to have.
Yeah.
You know, when you want to have more sustain, then you make 6 bolts in. When you want less sustain for whatever reason, then make only 4 bolts in, or 1 bolt, or whatever. And these are all things what are connecting together. And this is, for example, you have guys, they are playing, I say, Fender basses or Sadowski basses. They are into a certain tone, which you get from certain parts, like the wood in the body, like the wood in the neck, like the fretboard wood, like the nut, like the bridge, and then you compare it to a Warwick bass. You know, you have different materials, different design, and this affects the tone of an instrument.
And now, what about finishes like nitrocellulose or polyurethane? Do they have any effect on that?
I agree totally with you on that a nitrocellulose lacquer would be perfect for an instrument, for a high polish instrument. And the thing is, the problem is that you always have problems with stands and reacting with stands, and it's a cheap lacquer. When you go with chemicals over it, you rub it off immediately. It's very difficult to spray, or let's say it also is forbidden in Europe to spray because it causes cancer during the spraying process, and it's still all the time the chemicals are going out. So we are using our ultraviolet special lacquer what we developed for the guitars, and it's as thin as nitrocellulose, but you have no problems with the chemicals inside. It's not reacting with chemicals. It is scratch resistant and so on. So a lot of the advantages. But to compare it, what we did when we were starting this project to develop a new lacquer system, we were in this time with Jonas Hellborg and Steve Bailey, and we were trying out. We had an instrument which was not lacquered. We had an instrument that was lacquered with a very thin polyurethane lacquer, and then we had one instrument with a very thick lacquer with polyester lacquering. And when you had these instruments, they were made all the same pickup, same wood. It was made out of the same lot of wood, so it was weight-wise comparable, but tone-wise it was different. An instrument which is not lacquered, it vibrates better. It's more the sustain and everything. It's more alive. And when you have then the polyurethane, which is a little bit thicker, a small change is already appearing. But when you have then an polyester lacquer, it's like you put a girl into a corset. It looks good, or she looks good, but she cannot breathe anymore. And this is happening with an instrument. And that's the thing. A thin lacquer, the thinner the lacquer is, the better the instrument is toning.
So obviously you have come up with the Antiquity line, and it captures the magic that pickups have as they age. Can you explain a little bit about what factors influence the aging of a pickup?
Yeah, over the years, a lot of things can affect a magnetic field that's in your actual pickup. When they're first magnetized, probably they'll lose a little bit, maybe 5%, just by almost how the alignment is with the magnetic field. But over the years, that alignment can be disturbed, which will make the magnet sound weaker. And so what happens when you have a weaker magnet in your pickup, you'll lose treble, you'll lose the high end or clarity. You can lose a little bit of output from the actual pickup too, and it'll sound warmer to you. When you're playing like a bass or a guitar, the tone will actually get softer and it'll be smoother, what they're saying. So with the vintage thing, I find out that you know, I've done so much with, you know, I'm probably one of the first guys to really work with calibration and everything, and how I demagnetize stuff, and I do all kinds of weird things. You know, I make coils and, you know, zap them, and I have cylinder coils that I put them in and zap them. I have variacs and everything that I use, you know, and I was in ham radio, and we had a lot of problems with, you know, radios, and sometimes the magnets would lose the magnetism because of, I have to be careful what I say because I don't want to give away any trade secrets here, you know. So, but it's cool. A magnet can get demagnetized by leaning it against your amplifier for many years, you know. Like guys will lean their bass next to the bass amp, and those big speakers that they have in here, that can actually interfere. If you go in like a tube system in London or, you know, in Europe, where you have a train, sometimes you'll take your instrument with you and you'll sit it next to this box, and that can be the actual generator for the engine, with the magnetic fields flying all over the place. That can actually demagnetize the pickups, and that actually happened to Andy Summers from the Police, where he was on a train and his pickups got demagnetized, and he lost almost all the output from it, you know. And if you had alternating current, that can really affect it, you know, from you know, the soldering irons. Some of these guys use these hand soldering irons that have the big coils in them, of the old Wellers and everything, and you can hear it. Like if you have your amp plugged in and you use the soldering iron, you can hear that sound. That sound is alternating current being generated, and that can demagnetize your pickup. So there's a lot of things you need to be aware of. You can't put other things on top of it, you know, and it makes it very difficult for traveling sometimes, you know, where to put your instrument, but you need to protect it, you know, and that's the main thing you have to be careful of, you know.
Now, other than for the magnets, is there anything else I can do to make a pickup age in a very short amount of time?
Well, again, it would be, you know, with me, we have a lot of like trade secrets, how we do the antiquities and everything, and I use certain things to enhance it, but with, you know, you guys, I mean, some people rub magnets over them to disturb that magnetic field, you know, and by waving it over the pickup, that can degauss the magnets on it, so you can do that pretty quick, you know. But see, I build all my own things. I have a thing called a Dunstunner, which I use, and I would just say, if you ever need something, or a player needs something, they want it to sound a little bit different, they can send a pickup to me, because these guys aren't going to have the equipment to be able to do it. Either they'll do it, you know, they won't be able to do it, or they'll do it completely demagnetize it, and then their pickup won't work at all. You'll hear a little bit of sound out of it, but it needs to be done under pretty cool conditions. You know, we have to do it very precisely and everything, and yeah, I just developed techniques how to do this. You know, I got separate mu-metal separators and everything, so when I'm doing one coil, it doesn't affect another coil in the magnetic field. So there's a balance to how you do it and how you want to do it. But, you know, if you ever come, are you near Santa Barbara?
I used to be. I recently moved to Las Vegas.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe if you come over sometime, we'll show you some pickups, and I'll show you what happens to them. I mean, I can physically show you how we do it. And we've got all kinds of Gauss meters that we use and everything. And, you know, some people, you know, the shock, you know, you can hit it with like a screwdriver, but that can actually change the magnetic field too, you know. I mean, it's weird stuff that happens with a pickup, you know, and the magnets. And they are pretty delicate, you know. But over the years, they'll lose a little bit of magnetism by themselves. But I built the equipment to enhance that movement. You know, I can make it from, you know, a year old to, you know, 10,000 years old. And I'm waiting for the dinosaurs to come out, you know. But I'm always, you know, building things and experimenting with it, you know, because to me, the magnetic field is so important, you know. And I have a pickup called the Eclair, which is like a JB for the humbucking, but it's weaker, but it has just a great tone to it, you know. And I do a lot to the magnetic field there, you know. And I have a way where I can demagnetize one part of the pickup where it won't affect the other end of the pickup. So you have a brighter one side, like on the bottom end, you want it to be brighter than the treble side sometimes. So I got a way to do that. And then also we do the 5-2. It's like a telly pickup where we put Alnico 5s in the bottom 3 strings because that'll keep the clarity of the bottom. And then I put like an Alnico 2 in the top 3 because they're pretty bright anyway. And you get a cool balance. And we had Brent Mason using that, and I think Danny Donato, all these telly guys. And it's a cool thing for them because it gives them something a little bit different, but they got that nice snap. And that all came about from working with Pete Anderson from Dwight Yoakam Band at the time. So I'm always experimenting with all that. But it's a fun thing to play with magnets and coils. Coils, different wire gauges. Like if you use say a 42, which is pretty standard, then you use a 43 and wind the same number of turns. The 43 turn is going to sound a little bit softer and brighter. You won't actually get more output, but you won't have as much treble. But if you put more turns, because you're using a smaller diameter wire with using 43 on the same coil, you can get maybe 4,000 more turns using the 43 versus the 42 wire. So the 43, by having more turns, you'll be able to get more output from it, but it won't be as bright as the coil made with 42 wire. So there's so many variables in and out, man. The magnetic field, the coil, how the wire's put on, the traverse, the tension of the wire is so important. If you put too much tension on it, you're going to increase the resistance, which will make it sound a little bit darker and everything. But by using more tension, you'll make the coil tighter and you won't get as much feedback from it without a potted coil. So there's so many little things. I've done it all. But I swear every day I'm trying to do something different, which is really cool, And I love it. And I got a lot of guinea pigs out there in the guitar world, bass players, I do a lot of work with Phil Chen. Phil, and for me, he played with Rod Stewart. He did Blow by Blow with Jeff Beck and everything. And he's just a great player, And I fixed his old P bass that he used on Blow by Blow album. One of the coils went out. And there's a thing called ICPC that a lot of people really don't know about. And ICPC is intercoil pole corrosion. And what happens, all the sweat and this, and people pour drinks on their guitar, and that all permeate into the coil. And it makes them very susceptible to becoming, they can rust and oxidize and everything. And that oxidation can break down the magnetic field. And then the pole piece can actually rust from the inside. And then that breaks down the insulation, and that'll short out your coil. So there's weird stuff there. And there's pickups we wind that we can put a resistor in series or in parallel, and we put capacitors in series and parallel. And if you put a resistor or a capacitor in parallel, it'll knock the high end off. And if you put it in series, it'll give you that like Chris Squire sound from Yes. You'll get that tone there, And a lot of bass players like that. So they'll have a little bypass switch where they can have that tone control in there and just get some really cool tones, And you can do a circuit where you run the pickup out of one amp through the capacitor, and you get that Chris Squire sound, and then you have another one going to another amp, so it sounds like there's two bass players playing in unison. So there's some really cool things you can do with the wiring to affect the tone. You can have roll-off things. You can have blend switches for like the jazz bass, and P bass and everything. There's some cool things you can do, but the bass players always got the short end of the deal for all the switching and all the guitar sounds and everything that are out there. But I would like to do more for the bass player, because to me, that's the whole foundation of your band. That and the drummer working together. It's incredible, and I appreciate all the bass players out there. And I played with Jocko before, and I know Chuck Rainey and all these guys. I did pickups for Chris Squire, and I've been pretty lucky, being out there. And Lemmy, old Lemmy, remember Lemmy? That guy, he was the loudest bass player I ever heard, And but fun stuff. I've had so many fun things. I did Live Aid, I did the Arms Tour, working with all these great bands over the years, But I want to thank you guys and thank them.
Thank you very
all the guys out there and girls playing. Tal, I saw Tal last night, Wilkenfeld, and my bass, Susie Quattro, and I knew her husband, Len Tuckey, from London, and I want to see her today at 2 o'clock, so that'll be kind of neat, you know. But anyway, but thank you again.
Yeah,
Thank you, buddy. Chris, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. That was perfect. Yeah, that was more than enough. Thank you.